you. Thank you very much, Sheikh. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so very interesting. Now it's 6 hours and 13 minutes now from the start of the session. So we'll just go to the new session, which is again a different concept. So let us see, always supply chain managers have challenges in the field, out of the field. Okay, so let us introduce something very interesting for them. So balance scorecard for supply chain managers. So we talk about very quick brief about balance scorecard will be presented, which is useful for supply chain managers. So how the supply chain management is connected to the strategy, and what they need to do to execute strategy from the supply chain management point of view. Okay, so just to hear that, so I would like to introduce our expert speaker, engineer Gopal Sharma ji. So he's a very experienced balance scorecard consultant. He's engineer by profession. Let me give a quick introduction. So Gopal Sharma ji is a certified balance scorecard graduate and a PMP. Has for over 40 years of experience in industries like construction, manufacturing, and services. An expert in strategy management and business excellence, he has driven growth for numerous organizations and authored a very fantastic book, Mastering Strategic Excellence. So with this, I would like to introduce Gopal Sharma ji. So I think your mic is mute. Okay, so if you are able to see me, okay. So let's talk about. So we have 1 hour time. So let us give a very nice briefing about balance scorecard to the supply chain managers, and then talk about some use cases. Okay. So over to you, sir. Please.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Abdul, and giving this opportunity. I think this is my third session. Earlier two conclave I spoke about same thing, balance scorecard and strategy management, and it was fantastic to hear all the participants and all the presenters about supply chain management. Though I have not worked in supply chain management, but I helped supply chain management organizations in developing strategy and implementing that strategy using the framework, what we call as balance scorecard. So I will try to do in 1 hour. Of course, it is a very vast subject, and I'll try to see in 1 hour, I hope I will be able to give you the key elements about the whole concept of strategy management and balance scorecard. So I'll just share my screen. I hope I'm able to see. Yes. Okay,
yeah,
you're able to see my screen, right?
We are able to see, yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. And I'm audible to everyone, right? There is no problem about it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So this is about transforming supply chain management using balance scorecard, right? So this is the topic of my subject. Sorry, I'm not able to go to the next slide. Oh, okay, now it's working. Okay, so introduction is already done, so I will not waste any more time. I have overall 40 years of experience. I'm a mechanical engineer. First 18 years I was into engineering and construction, and then I moved gradually to corporate strategy and business excellence role. And as independent consultant, I have helped almost like 25 to 30 organizations in Middle East in developing a long-term strategy and implementing using balance scorecard. So I am a certified balance scorecard practitioner. Quickly looking at reasons for poor organizational performance. This is based on my own research over the last 20 years, what I have observed in my client's organization and doing my own research. So the first one comes as inadequate planning. Either the planning is only for short term or there is no planning at all. Many of the businesses, especially those small businesses or medium-sized businesses, they work mostly on annual plan. That was the case with one of my employer when I joined them. And then I introduced them with long-term planning. So long-term planning is very, very important for having visibility of the performance and what the organization can achieve in long-term basis. The second one, some people, they have the strategy, but then they are not able to execute the strategy properly, and they are not able to achieve those results which actually they plan. So it's not only the strategy which is important, the capability to execute your chosen strategy is equally important. The third one is many of the businesses where I worked, they were like single owner businesses, and most of those businesses, private entities, they maintain secrecy, especially the owners. They don't want to share their strategy. They don't want to share their business secrets with the rest of their employees. And then employees, they don't know why they're doing what they're doing. And they don't know whether they have long-term career with the organization. This is even in India now. I'm in India. I work mostly in Middle East. But in India, this is really a big problem. So employees, they don't find the why of what they're doing. The fourth major reason is inadequate resources, because if you don't have long-term planning and you try to arrange resources on ad hoc basis and as and when the need arises, it creates a bottleneck for the organization. Lack of clarity is another one about this competition, market, and demand and pricing, those external factors which influence the performance of organization, because they don't look in long term. They don't have the data with regard to market size, the customer requirements and needs, and even the competitive pricing strategy. Then, of course, there are external factors which keep changing. So you need to go with what is happening in the market. That includes competition, that includes new products which are being introduced, the new players emerge in the market, and all those external factors which influence the business. And the last one is the resistance to change, especially even for some owners as well as the employees. So they are reluctant to adapt and change based on the customer needs or based on the market conditions. And they try to maintain the same strategy or tactics which they have been following. And obviously the business decline. So if you look at these 7 factors, most of them are associated with either they don't have a well-planned strategy or they don't have the capability to execute the strategy which they have developed. There are other factors which actually contribute to the misery of these owners, especially those private companies, that 80% of the value, business value, is latent, because you have systems and processes and resources. You might have some patents and all those things. These are not reflected in the balance sheet, and these are not given enough importance. So the value is latent most of the time. If you look at the Apple, their valuation, if market valuation is maybe, I think, almost like 100 times more than their book value. They don't have any manufacturing plants. Everything is outsourced. They are only focusing on selling and, of course, the product design. So those intangible assets are not given enough importance in traditional strategy or traditional business plan. And they are most critical, more critical than physical resources, because physical resources you can acquire easily, but it takes time to build the capabilities and systems and processes and having those kind of things which actually differentiate you from your competitors. And based on various surveys, these are the other factors. If you look at, only 5% of the staff understand their strategy, because the strategy is not shared with wider audience in the organization. 85% of the owners spend less than few hours in a month to discuss their strategy. And then traditional reporting and management systems focus only on results. What leads to those results are often ignored. And then focus is primarily on doing things right, rather than doing the right things. So doing things right is mostly your operations, but doing the right thing is the strategy. And then majority of businesses, especially which are owned by single owner, which are not large entities. It's more of control and compliance driven businesses rather than mission and customer driven. So if you look at, we take just one factor that if the organization's intangible assets, which include patent system processes and capabilities, human resources and all this, they represent 80% of the value, the organization's strategy, formulation and execution need to explicitly address the mobilization and alignment of intangible assets. It's just common sense. Obviously, these factors which are intangible in nature need to be part of your strategy development process and later on part of your strategy execution process as well. So quickly looking at before you develop the strategy, probably most of the organizations, they have mission, vision, and values. But to what extent these are imbibed in the systems and processes and in their culture, it's really a big question mark. Because everybody, if you go to any business website, you will find these mission, vision, values, but they are not really used for successful strategy development and execution. So as you already know, mission, we talk about why do we exist? What is the purpose of having the business or an entity or an organization? What it is supposed to achieve? Vision is where are we going in 3 to 10 years time, where as a business we want to reach. So that's a vision normally most of the organizations, they will set for themselves. And value is part of the cultural factors that what we will or we will not do to get where we want to reach, right? So I'm just giving, I'm moving very quickly. The reason being because it's just 1 hour and I have a lot to cover. So once organizations, let's say they have mission, vision, and values, then they need to develop the strategy in line with what mission, vision, and values they have. And strategy, if you look at the definition of a strategy is an integrated set of choices that position a firm in an industry to earn superior returns over a long run. Right? So these 3 elements are important. It's an integrated set of choices. You can't have different choices, for example, for your product, and you might have a different marketing strategy and you have entirely different market. It's not possible. They need to be integrated. They need to serve each other, right? And the aim of having a strategy is to earn better than your competitors, and the business need to survive over a long run, right? According to various surveys, which are Bain and Company, I think they are doing every year, they are doing surveys on strategy and balance scorecard. And according to the latest survey, 88% of the organizations claim that they conduct a formal planning and enjoys highest user satisfaction. But then only 45% of the respondents were satisfied with the strategy planning process. They do the planning, but then the process they use is not up to the mark. And then the respondent claimed that only 20% of the major decisions were made within its confines. In the sense, they develop the strategy, but then therefore don't follow the strategy. Okay. To have a good strategy, there are 3 tests which strategy need to pass. One is that it has to be based on external factors, which we are talking about the business environment and competitors and all those factors. And that need to be consistent with the factors. It should address those factors which are external to the organization. Then strategy needs to be internally consistent. It should be based on the capabilities and resources and what the organization wants to achieve. Medium to long run, it has to be consistent with that. And then the third one test is the dynamic consistency, which is you should be able to adapt the strategy based on the changes in the external or internal environment or factors, right? So this is very, very important that you need to have the strategy which is consistent with external environment, internal factors, and then you should be able to adapt it based on the change in the external environment and internal factors. Sorry. Quickly looking at the strategy development process, the first, of course, step is to doing the strategic analysis. An analysis has to be done for external environment, external business environment. Then you need to do the internal analysis, what capabilities and resources you have, what you want to achieve, what targets you're setting for yourself. And then based on that, you need to identify the key factors which need to be addressed by the strategy, what we call as a SWOT strategy. A SWOT analysis where we identify the strengths and weaknesses based on the internal capabilities of the organization. And then we also look for the opportunities and threats in the external environment. So your strengths and weaknesses are supposed to address those opportunities and threats in the external environment. And then you develop the strategy where you take decisions on where we will be competing, what will be the geographical boundaries for the market, which customers we will serve, what kind of value proposition or differentiation we will have, and then how we are going to compete. This is a complete game plan you need to develop so that you are able to beat the competition. And the last one is the financial model that, okay, from where the revenues and profits will come, how much revenue and how much profit we will be able to generate. Right? So that is the crux of the strategy formulation. And then we identify if it is a new business, of course, you don't have something to compare with, but then you also do a value gap analysis. If you're doing year-on-year business, it's an ongoing business. Then you look at the gap in the current and desired performance, and then you decompose that, okay, the gap in, let's say, revenues and profits, we decompose and we find out and decide that, okay, from where this gap will be bridged, from which sector, which products, which area we will be getting the business, and then we will address the gap. And based on that, finalize the strategy and then action plan. And then we need to measure the progress, and then we need to define that how the performance will be reviewed, how the action planning will be done, what will be the planning horizon, and at what frequency the measurements will be taken and reviewed formally. Okay, so I'm just quickly covering the strategy development process. So when we look at internal factors, these are all the factors we need to look at: what human capital we have, what kind of organization culture we have, and if we want to change, what kind of organization culture we would like to have to achieve those objectives or the targets which we are planning for. And then we look at the business, brand equity, processes, technology, financial resources. All these factors need to be looked at as part of internal analysis. Then we look at, these are quickly, I will introduce that, of course, every organization, they have resources, capabilities, competencies, and core competency. There's a fine difference between these things. Resources are tangible and intangible assets. These are on a standalone basis. You might have financial resources and human resources, for example. You might have physical infrastructure. These are called resources. When you combine these resources and put some processes in place to make use of those resources, then you build capabilities in an organization, right? And then when you have those multiple capabilities, you are able to combine in a unique pattern, which is unique to you and maybe better than your competitors, then these become core competencies. And finally, we have core competencies, which is an organization's greatest expertise, which is very difficult for the competition to copy, right? So if you look at the time taken for developing, as you go from resources to core competencies, it takes more time. And then it is more difficult to acquire. So core competencies, very rarely organizations will have. Maybe few organizations who are really market leader in their industry, they will have those kind of core competencies. Right? So it is important when we are doing the analysis, internal analysis, we look at each of these four elements of the capabilities of an organization. Quickly looking at value chain, of course, everybody is aware of it. We have those support activities which help us in running our primary activities, and primary activities are industry specific. Typically, this is for a tech firm. They might have strategic portfolio management. So they have number of products or services or for the IT. Then you have analysis, you have development process, marketing and sales, product services, and then you combine those support activities to run those primary activities to make profit. For manufacturing, you might be having a procurement and manufacturing as those key processes. Typical support activities, more or less, they remain same. Maybe for supply chain, we might need to add a supply chain management also as one of the support activities, if it is considered as a support activity, depending on how the SCM is operating for that. Okay, I think customer value proposition in one of the earlier presentation was already discussed, right? So it's a value proposition is basically uniquely meeting the targeted customers' needs. You can't serve every customer, so you need to target certain customers, and what kind of value you will be providing to those customers in terms of product and services. That is, we talk about customer value proposition for that specific segment. And it differentiates one business from the competitors, and it needs to be sustainable. So there's three qualities need to be met when we talk about customer value proposition. And it is unique for each business entity as it will uniquely address its customer needs. So you can't serve all the customers. You will target certain customers with whom you will be able to provide them with the customer value proposition which you are developing for your product or services. And finally, we need to understand that, as you will see, that balance is scorecard and a strategy map. It helps you in understanding that how the internal processes address the customer perspective by focusing on those value propositions which you are planning for your customers, right? So value proposition, by definition, it describes a unique mix of product, price, service, relationship, and an image offered to a customer. So people who buy Apple products, they will they will not go for Samsung or any Android phones. So the value proposition is very unique and targeted for specific customers. And if you look at those three value propositions, generally we have these three value propositions. We call it as operational excellence strategy, customer intimacy strategy, and product leadership. And the targeted customers are entirely different, and focus on those attributes related to product and services are totally different. When we are talking about operational excellence, we are talking about the quality of the product needs to be reasonable. Price is very, very critical, which is highlighted with red tick mark, right? And then functionality has to be there, which should be able to address the customer requirements in that particular segment. Service is not that important. Relationship building is not important. Brand, of course, for all three value propositions, it is important. The second one is where we are talking about customer intimacy strategy, where price, quality, time, and functionality is not that critical, but the relationship with the customers is very, very important. And the customer intimacy generally is applicable or is used in professional services, for example, for the doctors, for surgeons, for lawyers, and those kind of services where you build long-term relationship with your customers. That is where the customer intimacy strategy is used. Brand is still, of course, important, but here the focus is on the relationship, which is improved service and relationship. And the last one, as the name suggests, it's a product leadership strategy where the product features and quality and functionality is very, very important. Service and relationship, not that critical, but brand, of course, has to be important. So targeted customers for any business are those customers who will place the highest importance to the attributes which the company is offering in its products and services, right? So this is very important whenever you are developing a strategy, you should know which market you are catering to and what are the attributes of your products and services which are important. Right? So this I have already explained, right? Operational excellence will be on the competitive price, customer perceived quality, on-time delivery, and lead time. Customer intimacy is the focus on relationship with the customer and completeness of the solution. And product leadership, of course, is the product features, functionalities, and the performance of the product. So developing this strategy, we need to develop this strategy as we looked at earlier, that's based on the external environment where we are going to operate. And this includes macro environment as well as micro environment. Macro environment is generally, it's related to overall business environment, which impacts all the businesses irrespective of the industry. So here, what we look at are those pastoral factors, which is political, economical, social, technological, environmental, and legal factors, which impact the businesses irrespective of the industry. So we look at how those factors, we identify those factors and then look at how they will be impacting our business. And then we go to micro environment where we are looking at a specific industry where we want to operate or we are already operating, which includes customers, competitors, substitute products, barriers to entries, and suppliers. Right? So these are specific to the industry where we are already there or we are planning to start. Right? So that specific industry, specific factors we will be looking at related to customers, competitors, and other three factors. So we identify all those factors. These are external factors, and based on that, right, we do the analysis and we identify the most critical factors which will influence our business. So we list down all the factors, then identify the most important factors, and then we look at and then identify what are the opportunities and threats and related to competitors and what strengths and weaknesses we'll have. And similarly, based on that, we look at the pastoral factors and do a SWOT matrix where we clearly identify the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Now, many let's say professors or people who are using these kind of frameworks, sometimes they say that SWOT matrix is no more relevant. I believe that SWOT matrix still can be very useful unless you are coming up with entirely new business where there is nothing which is comparable to the existing products or services. Maybe you don't have to do SWOT, but if it is an existing business, it is always useful to do a SWOT analysis. Then we look at the competitors. So we identify all the competitors, which will include direct competitors, indirect competitors, and of course, we also need to look at the substitute competitors and products. We gather all that information related to 4 Ps and the marketing mix and other important attributes, and then analyze those competitors, and we do some kind of qualitative or quantitative analysis that where do we stand in terms of our competitors and identify those competitive advantage if we have any. So those 4 Ps, of course, you know, the product, pricing, place, and promotion. So we look at all the competitors, we place them, and then there are 4 Ps and 1 more R is added recently, which is positioning, people, partnership, processes, and reputation. So all these factors we look at, and then we try to, this is one of the easiest way of doing it, is that we take all these 9 factors and then we look at the competitors' products and services, and we try to score them out of 10. So you have total score of 90 out of 90, you give them the score, overall score, and then you can take the average, and then you can compare yourself with your competitors that where they stand. And you can have a minimum threshold level of a score, and then the highest, of course, is 10. So you do this kind of competitive analysis. You can also use some other management models which can be used depending on, or you can appoint even consultants for doing that kind of analysis if you're serious about the competition. So these are another frameworks which can be used with BCG matrix for placing your products, positioning of your product. Then a strategic group analysis, we look at the same strategic group products and services, which is relevant to our industry or products. Then we do perceptual mapping. We take feedback from the customers and then try to map their perception about our products and service. Of course, I think one of the session I talked about business model canvas also can be used. And we also can now, which is more relevant, is customer journey map when we are talking about online services and products which are being marketed. So we can map the customer journey starting from identifying or discovering our product and service up to the final purchase decision. And that whole mapping can be done. And then you can identify the areas where you need some kind of intervention or further enhancement in the services. So putting all together, the strategy development, we look at the external factors, identify all those factors related to a pastoral analysis. Then we looked at the portfolios, market intelligence, competition, and we also look at the customer. And then internal factors or internal environment, we look at resources, capabilities, competencies, what we have and what we need to acquire in case we are going with the strategy, what we plan, or the expansion we are planning. Then we look at the infrastructures, we look at intangible assets of the organization, then we look at the internal value chain. We look at the innovation and R&D capabilities for product enhancement and new product development and all that. And the most critical is organizational culture and structure, that what kind of organizational culture and structure we need to have for our strategy, successful execution of our strategy. Based on that, we identify the key issues. Right? This is one of the critical steps when we are developing the strategy. Initial stage, we need to look at all the factors, whatever has been recorded through the various analyses, what we looked at. And then we should be aiming for few most important critical issues. Otherwise, a lot of effort will be wasted in focusing on too many factors, and then our focus will be diluting. So this is typically SWOT analysis, what all it has. So strengths, you look at all those factors, successes, annual review findings, and core competencies if that organization has distinctive competencies, capabilities, and all those. Weaknesses, we look at recent failures and those process audits. If we do some capability gaps, we identify, and customer complaints and all those. So generally, strengths and weaknesses come from your internal factors, and opportunities and threats will come from the external environment. Where opportunities, you can have some kind of deliberate strategies. Market industry analysis may identify some gaps in the product's offering, and probably you can offer some product to bridge the gap. And we also look at the adjacent industries. We look at competitors' weaknesses and all those to identify. And threats, of course, is competitors' strategies can be a threat. Industry trends, if the products and services are in declining phase and which are going to be outphased in some time. So those can be threats. Regulations, more stringent regulations can be a threat. New entrants emerging in the market. The competitors' analysis also can, disclose or identify some threats. And then, of course, the pastoral analysis also. You can get some idea about if there are threats. So what we do is we identify the strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats. Strengths, we are supposed to capitalize and build on them. Weaknesses, we need to overcome. Opportunities, we need to exploit. And threats, of course, we need to analyze and somehow we need to mitigate them. And based on that, we also, based on SWOT analysis, we also identify the strategic challenges and strategic advantages. We need to evaluate our ability to compete in context of what mission and values we have. And then we identify the key issues and what strategic options we have available to achieve the vision. So that's how they all, join together and combine. So there are two major decisions we need to take: where to compete and how to compete. So what product portfolio we are supposed to have and in which segments we will be competing. And then how we are going to do it is the value proposition. What unique value proposition we will be providing to our customers so that they will come to us and they will not go to our competitors. So this is typically SWOT matrix. I have just put it and we convert that into TOOS matrix, we call it. So here what we are doing is we are looking at the strengths and opportunities and try to find out if we have an advantage, and we call that as a strategic advantage. So if we have any strengths which can be used to encash an opportunity which is already existing, then we have a strategic advantage, right? But if we have a strength, but there are also challenges or there are threats in the market, then we call those as strategic challenges. If you look at the right upper corner, strategic challenges, right? So we need to overcome those threats in case we want to use those strengths. So those are challenges, right? The strategic challenges. And then if there are opportunities in the market, but we have certain weaknesses and which will hinder us from encashing those opportunities, we call them as critical success factors. Because unless we work on our weaknesses, we will not be able to make use of those opportunities. So those are critical success factors. This is generally, these are the definitions when we try to identify. So strategic advantages, we need to make use of it. Strategic challenges, we need to overcome. And critical success factors, we need to really work on if we want to encash that opportunity. And generally, I would suggest that we go into the fourth quadrant, which is the combination of weaknesses and threat, because if you already have weaknesses and there are threats as well, it will require a lot of resources and effort to address both simultaneously. So this is overall strategy development process where we look at the external factors. We have market intelligence with regard to the competition, market positioning, and then we develop the marketing and selling models. We look at the internal factors. We do competitive scenario and industry analysis. We do the synthesis. We use these various models. And then we also have the aspirations and values. Then we do the validation. We do some kind of let's say scenario planning and then validate our findings and our strategy, and then we develop the strategy and the business plan. Right. So now we will quickly move to the balance scorecard. I'm just taking one example to explain the balance scorecard concept. Right. Okay, so I have taken a supply chain management company, for example, just because to make it more relevant for all the participants. And the company's name is, actually, we are looking at the supply chain management division of FMCG company, right? So it works as one of the division. So it's not a profit center. And the current turnover and margin of the FMCG company is 1,000 crore and with 12% margin. And company's vision is they want to, in 3 years, they want to double their turnover and then increase margin from 12 to 18%. Right? So in line with that supply chain division's vision is that they want to have 30% reduction in logistics costs with 99% on-time delivery rate in 3 years. Right? So this is something which has been cascaded from the business to the supply chain division. Right? So the thing is, if we look at supply chain division and they are already tracking daily sales and costs and all this, is it going to help them in achieving that 30% reduction? Obviously, it is not going to help them. So what they need to do is they need to reduce the logistics costs, improve delivery time, and enhance efficiency. Right? So we are just, logically, we are trying to figure out what needs to be done. Right? So how they are going to reduce the logistics cost and improve delivery time and all that, they need to optimize their supply chain network, enhance supplier collaboration, and invest in technology for better forecasting and inventory management. And how can they improve the supplier collaboration? By working closely with the suppliers to improve lead time, share real-time data, and align on quality standards to reduce waste and stockouts. And how technology will be able to help is investing in advanced supply chain management systems and automated inventory management will enable quicker decisions and it will help them in reducing the cost. And the key elements for improving the delivery performance is reliable transportation partners, predictive analytics, and adequate safety stocks. And how to ensure consistent improvement, implement Lean or Six Sigma, regular training of the staff, new process and technology, right? So this is, we are just, thinking out loud that how we can achieve it. And then what role employee engagement, because they are already doing some kind of employee engagement. So how it is going to help them is engaged employees, obviously, as we know, who understand the importance of supply chain efficiency will be more committed to implementing changes leading to better outcomes, right? So what we have discussed is we have discussed not a problem, a target that we need a reduction of 30% in the supply chain costs in 3 years' time. And we are logically thinking that how we are going to achieve that, right? So now what we are trying to do is we will try to map the whole thought process. Okay, I call it as a cause and effect map. Okay, so I'm starting from the bottom. What I require is we require the technology and systems. We need to train those staff related to supply chain, and then we need to create the right kind of environment so that the employees are engaged and they are more productive, right? That will help us in inventory management, suppliers collaboration, and we will be able to forecast the demand more accurately. All these will help me in improving the delivery process or on-time delivery. Okay? So that will help me in improving on-time delivery, and the customers will be satisfied, and probably the business will get more orders from them. And that overall will help me in reducing the costs. Right? So this is, I'm doing a cause and effect mapping. Right? So what I do is I'm just giving a name of this because the bottom part is related to employees training, the systems and processes and all those kind of things. So I call this as a learning and growth perspective, where I have a lot of intangible things which will help me in running my processes. I call the next slab as internal process perspectives, where I have all the processes related to my activities, which is inventory management, supplier collaboration, demand forecasting, and all those things. That will help me in satisfying my customers, and that will help me in reducing the costs. Because I am a division of FMCG company, I don't have the revenue targets. My target is only how will I be able to reduce my overall cost by 30% in 3 years. Right? So there are 4 perspectives I have put, and I am covering not just the financial performance and new customer, but I am also looking at my internal factors which will help me. And then I put some kind of KPIs, right? So for learning and growth, I have the technology readiness because I need to deploy some new technology and new systems. So I have that I will have to track. Then training man hours, how much training I'm giving, and I'm just making sure whether my employees are happy. So I'm taking a survey of employee satisfaction. Here I'm taking process-related measures where average delivery time, inventory turnover ratio, supplier lead time, and forecast accuracy. Those are the things which I'm measuring to see whether my processes are working. And in customer perspective, on-time delivery and customer satisfaction, these two measures, and ultimately the financial, I have one measure, I need to reduce costs from 100 crore to 70 crore in 3 years, 30% reduction in my supply chain costs. Right? So this is how I'm able to show on one single page the complete strategy of the supply chain management division, that how I'm going to achieve it. And what I do is the cause and effect map, I call it as a strategy map, because if you look at it, this is what my strategy is. This is how I'm going to achieve that reduction of 30%. Right? So this is, I call it as a strategy map, and this I call as balanced scorecard. Why I call this as balanced scorecard? Because I am no more measuring only financials or even customer measures, but I'm also looking at my internal measures. I'm looking at my capabilities. I'm looking at overall processes and factors that influence the performance of my division. So it's a kind of a scorecard, and it is balanced because it is no more just a financial or customer measure, but I have all the internal measures, and these are well thought of based on the strategy which I developed in the previous, let's say, step. So the solution is very simple. You need to develop a business strategy based on your business. So you do the complete analysis. Then you make a one-page representation of your strategy using the strategy map, and then implement the strategy using the balanced scorecard. Okay. So now my strategy is based on SWOT, strategic advantages, challenges, and everything. More than 75% of the assets are intangibles. I am already taking those into consideration when I'm doing all those analyses. And then business exists because of the customer. So customer, I'm really taking care, trying to identify the requirements, value proposition, everything I'm looking at related to customer. And then most of the time the execution of the strategy fails rather than the strategy itself. So balanced scorecard and strategy map helps us in, one is that communicating the strategy across the organization, everybody is able to understand, make sense out of it, identify where he will be able to contribute, and then we are able to execute that strategy, right? So this is a simple framework, what we call as a balanced scorecard. So balanced scorecard, little bit of history. It started in 1980s, actually, American company, Analog Devices, they were already using some kind of a scorecard they had. And looking at that, and then KPMG, they hired Doctors Kaplan and Norton for 1 year multi-company study for measuring the performance. They wanted to look at how various companies are measuring the performance. And based on that study, Doctors Kaplan and Norton, they published their first paper in Harvard's Business Review in 1992, and they called it as a balanced scorecard. And since then, balanced scorecard actually has become one of the primary tool for strategy development and execution and performance management solution. So as you know this already, I'll quickly go through. I think we will be running short of time otherwise. So learning and growth, I'm looking at the employees and infrastructure, that how they will help us in sustaining the changes and the improvements which we are bringing to the systems and processes. Internal business processes are for managers and process owners. that how the processes are operating and how the performance is being tracked. Then we have customers, how do we create value, it explains, and then what benefits customers need to be provided. So the customer perspective covers those kind of things. And financial measures are, or financial perspective is related to business owners, that how the value is created for the shareholders. So it's a cause and effect relationship, that what kind of skills and knowledge I need to have to run my internal processes to satisfy the customer requirements, what customer is looking for, to have the financial outcomes. What we call this as a strategy map and balances scorecard framework. So these bottom two, if you look at, these are enablers, and then the top two are the outcomes. Right? Whether the customers are satisfied, this is an outcome. Financial results are outcomes. And the bottom two, we are looking at internal processes and learning and growth and capabilities. That is actually the enablers. And this is what the strategy map looks like. You have 4 perspectives. As I took that sample, the 4 perspectives, bottom is the learning and growth, and top is the financial. Right? So financial perspective looks at what will be the economic model look like, then which customers we serve and what we will provide them. And then internal processes, how will the value delivery system be configured to serve these customers? And then what skills and technology we need to have to run those systems. And strategic initiatives are supposed to address the gap between the current level of performance and the desired future performance, right? So we need to have some initiatives and action plans to bridge that gap.
Gopalji, we have like 10 minutes. Huh? So let us,
Yes, I'm coming close. I'm trying to rush. Sorry.
Yeah, I know.
Well, it's a huge thing actually. So, okay, sorry. So this is what the balances scorecard look like. You have number of measures, you have those 4 perspectives. Same, you have the financial on the top, customer, then you have internal, and then learning and growth. And you have number of strategic objectives. You give them weightage and you can identify the overall score of each of these. Implementing, I think very quickly, I'll go through it. Once you do the complete analysis of internal factors and external business environment and all that, then you identify, okay, what are the key strategic themes I need to focus on, right? So that will help me in identifying those major areas where I need to put trust and then expect some results, right? And just giving quick example from real example. So what we have is, let's say they want to achieve a revenue of 200 million and 25 million of profit by 2025. So the mission is there. Then you have the high level strategic themes. There are 2 themes here. What I have shown is that consolidate, strengthen position in existing market. So you have looking at growth in existing market, and then you're looking at geographical expansion of your business. Right? So then you have those 2 themes which will help you in achieving those targets what you are setting. And then you break it down further when we are talking about consolidating or strengthening position, then you are looking at the strategy of developing strategic partnerships with key developers, and then market penetration for additional segments and all that. So you have the themes and then you have the strategies. Then you develop the strategic objectives, what we saw in the strategy map. You need to have a strategic objectives. Typically, you will have a verb and you will have adjective, because you putting a, let's say, develop world-class process as in a strategic objective. So you're targeting to improve your process and bring it up to world-class. Right? So you have verb, adjective, and noun together, they will become strategic objectives. Once you have strategic objectives for each of the 4 perspective, and then you look at cause and effect relationship map, or you can leave as it is also, because the one of strategic objective in one of the perspective may have impact on the multiple objectives in other perspective. Then you have those KPIs. So you need to have both lead and lag KPIs. And the performance measures, what we are talking about. So on the left-hand side, you have those lead measures, and then you have those outputs and outcomes. Depending on where you are measuring, you will have those as lead and lag measures. Both are supposed to be there when you are doing balanced scorecard implementation. And then you have strategic initiatives or special projects which will help you in bridging the gap in the current level of performance and the future performance. So those are discretionary projects and programs outside the organization's day-to-day operational activities. So those specific projects you will take up to address the gaps in performance. And if you put it together, now you have those 4 perspectives, and I have objectives for each of those perspectives. I have the measures, I have targets, and then I have initiatives. So I have on one single page my strategies there, that how I'm going to achieve what I'm going to achieve and what actions I need to take. And this is how it is actually, if you look at it, cascades. Starting from the mission, you have the vision have quantity, like quantifiable measures, and then based on that, you develop the strategy. Based on the strategy, you develop the objectives. For those objectives, how you're going to measure the performance. So you have KPIs. And for those KPIs, you have the targets. And then if there are gaps between the current level of performance and the desired performance, then you have those specific projects and assignments or initiatives which will help you in bridging that gap. So this is the complete cascade starting from mission to everyday activity in the organization. So the line of sight, if you look at the bottom level of people, they will also understand why they are doing what they're doing. So they will find a purpose. Okay, this is how I'm contributing to the organization's success. And probably it will motivate, and then probably employee engagement will also increase. Next one is automation. Depending on the size of the organization, the automation, which I think Mr. Abdul's products and services cover. So he's doing this automation part. And then you need to cascade it to your support functions, also need to be aligned to your business strategy. If you have multiple divisions and then you have a corporate office, then you need to develop the corporate strategy first and then cascade it to the business unit level. And then you need to implement at the support functions. So this is overall a strategy execution process, that you translate the strategy, you develop a strategy map, you have the strategic initiatives, you also do the risk management, which I have not covered actually. You're supposed to do the risk management as well, whether you will be able to achieve or not, especially those projects you're doing, some experimentation you will be doing. And then you need to align all those entities, and then you plan the operations. Right? Your external stakeholders also need to be aligned to your customers, your suppliers, your partners, and everybody need to be aligned. And the final step is you need to have the regular reviews, maybe quarterly or monthly reviews, and obviously annual reviews, that how the performance was against the strategy which you had chosen, and whether you were able to achieve those objectives. This is the book actually which Mr. Abdul was talking about. This was published last year in December. And this covers, I have just covered some part of it, but most of the frameworks, the whole process, and with a lot of samples about the scorecard strategy maps are included actually in this book. It's a good book if somebody wants to implement, learn, and then implement the balance scorecard and the strategy. So that's from my side. And I think it's exactly 5 o'clock. Huh?
Yeah. Thank you, Gopalji. Thank you very much. It's very. I see what we are trying to do is we are trying to empower the supply chain management professionals.
Yes.
All the available concepts which are relevant for them. Sometimes maybe they don't know. So what we did today is we had session of balance scorecard for supply chain managers. So we had session for ESG for supply chain managers. Other concepts which for the manufacturing and some business topics. So it's fantastic thing. So Gopalji, thank you very much for a wonderful
Thank
session.
you.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
what we'll do
Sorry,
is
there's no time for taking question, or maybe if somebody has any one question I can address, or we leave it for the future. Maybe you can share with me if anybody shares any question with you.
the questions, and then he will just compile and share with you, and then these questions can be discussed offline. Okay, and then definitely there could be any call or so. Kuldeep will organize.